I feel that there is a mental side of, especially being strongly garnered when you have to think about just the transition in itself. Talk a little bit about that as far as that being a mental health issue just within itself.
Absolutely, Ray. Thank you guys for having me. So I want to clarify. So when we hear mental health, right, we often think about the disorders, depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, eating disorder, personality disorders. But mental health is really how we do life.
The one that
Hey, we're back on the corner. I'm Ray Crockett. My man, my co-host, Ro Parrish. Ro, we got a hot show today.
Yes, we do.
And the reason why I really say it's a hot show, because it brings me back to the locker room. This is a segment of really hanging out on the corner. But now, we're talking about something I feel that is just as important as your playing days, is your retirement days. And your retirement days, and one thing I can guarantee you this, and my guests will let you know, there's only one thing I can guarantee you. That day will come when you have to retire. And when it comes, you have to be mentally ready, you have to be mentally prepared, because the transition is a big, you know that word.
Yeah.
So let me introduce some of my guests here. I got my man to my right, Eric Warfield, Kansas City Chiefs, 8-year cornerback. Also, my little bro, we man the corners. He was left side, right side, strong side, left side. Big boy, Flozell Adams, 13 years in the league, Dallas Cowboys. I call him Snacks, because he always eating up linemen. My man right here, bro, I'm gonna let you introduce my man.
Well, of course, I mean, you can't have an episode where you talk about mental health and things of that nature post-retirement without an expert. So we have a therapist here, Jay Barnett, who's an author who has his book right here. He's currently on tour, so you can go to his website. We'll go ahead and post that up there so you can know where to purchase the book. Just Heal, bro.
Just Heal, bro.
That's the name of the book. So we got Jay Barnett here. Happy to have you. Welcome to the city.
Man, thank you guys for having me, man. This is great.
Man, we appreciate you on it. And I felt this was really important, Jay. You know as well as I know, when you're playing ball, these guys can tell you it's all about the physical. Everybody's talking about the physical aspect. We know it's a lot of mental into that as well as we're playing. But it's even more prevalent when you retire. And I don't care where you transition from, whether it's from being a professional athlete, whether it's from being a retired DJ, whatever that is, I feel that there is a mental side of, especially being strongly garnered when you have to think about just the transition in itself. Talk a little bit about that as far as that being a mental health issue just within itself.
Absolutely, Ray. Thank you guys for having me. So I want to clarify. So when we hear mental health, right, we often think about the disorders, depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, eating disorder, personality disorders. But mental health is really how we do life. We do life from our mind, body, and spirit. And so what really led me even on this journey, I was a free agent in 2006. I wasn't drafted. And I got brought into Green Bay, went longer there for a cup of coffee. And so after leaving there, going play arena for 2 years and trying to find my way and figure out, all right, this is over. And for me, it was about how do I identify myself out without an helmet?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And many times the mental part for us, and particularly for men, what we do is how we identify ourselves. Whether it's sports, whether it's being a DJ, whether it's your 9 to 5, and we don't think about the mental capacity of what it takes to prepare, because as a pro, we learn how to be a pro, but then there's another life that we have to learn how to be a man. Because how many times that we're on this field that a guy can be awesome at play calling, but he's not the best father, or he's not the best husband, or even times there's so many fragmented pieces in his character. And so I think when we look at the mental health, it's understanding that determines your quality of life.
Right, exactly. And here's the hard part too. I look at it like this, like you said, you played a year or you went to a training camp and then you played a couple of years. And it doesn't matter when you retire. Warfield, I can speak for you. I know your journey. I know you wanted to play longer than you did. It was abruptly halted. You got injured or whatever. Talk about that. Whether you're prepared like myself, played a decade and a half, I was somewhat prepared to retire. But when it abruptly hits you, how does that affect you?
At that point, it's like, you really haven't thought about the post career of what football comes with. And so I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I mean, I was lucky to the point of having a best friend who was my financial guy that kind of had me prepared for the offseason. But me, myself, I didn't know this. I just knew that, you know, I thought I made enough money to where I don't have to work anymore. I mean, I'm still at that position, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is what you and I kind of talked about earlier, is having that purpose. And the thing for, I think, a lot of us is that we lose sight of that purpose because we think that what comes with that is if I get a job, people are going to think I don't have money. People are going to think I'm broke. They're going to think, yes.
Yeah.
And so that's the point to where like our pride sits in, and it keeps us from either addressing the situation of what we struggle with mentally or even financially or some of the physical things. And so when you also placed in front of these situations of benefits of as to what the NFL tries to give you and the loopholes that they take you through to try to even get those benefits. Hell, I know you suffered a lot, banging heads and, you know, whatever injury medical reports you got. You in the trenches. Every player is a headbanger for you. So, and then to go through all these things of what the NFL says that, okay, you don't qualify. You don't qualify for this, you don't qualify for that. And all of a sudden, you see these other guys that, hell, may not have played, special teams guys, but they're getting these checks.
Right.
They're getting these benefits. And so, and then they throw loopholes at the rest of us. But then it's like, for me, the part that hurt me the worst was, again, the whole pride factor and sitting with this guy from the NFL who's the consultant, to sit there and try to quiz me over what I've gone through, what I'm dealing with now. And so that's where my pride kicks in, because I don't want to sit there and tell a dude, I can't remember this, I can't do this, I can't do that.
It's an embarrassment.
It is.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment. And talk about that, Flo, because like he said, for you, you're getting hit every play. Is that something that prepares your body for, or does that break your body down? Because you guys are prepared to hit every play. What does that do for you, and mentally, how does that make you feel?
Well, to be prepared to hit, being an offensive lineman, we're doing hitting. So we don't normally get hit most of the time. We're usually doing the hitting, which is the best part about it.
So I want to ask that, because people don't know that. Like, we did the hitting, and you see a lot of guys that have concussions or have the problems are the guys that do the hitting. Talk about how is the difference between you doing the hitting and us having to hit you?
Because if we go against a defensive lineman and we have to go after them to get our goal is to move them out the way to get a running back to go through, or for them to rush us to get the quarterback, because they come to the field, we're hitting. They're trying to rush the quarterback, we're hitting. We're trying to make a hole for the running back, we're hitting. We want to hitting. So that's the difference between, because the defender is doing the absorbing. They got to take the hit to try to get to what they need, the quarterback or the running back, whoever's carrying the ball, or the wide receiver or anything like that. I mean, even though you're a safety or corner, you're still kind of getting hit in so many ways. I catch the ball, you got to hit, but he's falling into you.
So from you being an expert at this, the difference, is there a true difference in giving a blow than receiving a blow?
Well, I mean, when you look at it, whether you giving or hitting, there's still that contact and that impact. So you're talking about it from the psychological perspective, that brain is hitting every time, and every time that brain hits, and what happened is it's a trauma that's taking place, whether it's a helmet-to-helmet hit or whether it's molestation at a young age. The brain, when it takes in trauma, it rewires the brain.
Something that's not normal.
That's exactly something that's not normal. What we did that's not normal.
Right.
I mean, you think about that, if you were doing it since you were 7th or 8th grade, and you're thinking about the impact over and over and over and over, and then, of course, at the speed as it is in the league, and you think about that impact over and over and over, and by the time the brain really stops to really settle down, it's been rewired so much. So you're looking at the degenerate brain disease in the CTE. The unfortunate is it can't be diagnosed until you're gone.
Right.
And so that impacts not only your rewiring, but it also impacts your social skills. I mean, I work with cats now, man, it's heartbreaking. I work with the Hall of Fame on their mental health side, and it's guys who watch And it's heartbreaking to hear they can't put a sentence together. And as Erica was saying, is guys are reaching out to me because they can't get the benefits. They can't see a therapist, or the therapist doesn't look like them, or they have a therapist that doesn't understand like in its totality of what they went through as an athlete. Because everybody sees what happens on Sunday, but nobody thinks about what is taking place Monday through Saturday. Right. If you're married, you got kids, you got family members pulling. All of this is pulling on you, and all of that is impacting your mental health. And so that within itself, man, is a great impact. And then all of a sudden, it's abruptly stopped.
And for me, it was really just the point of coming to grips with almost having to hit rock bottom, like almost having nowhere else to go. And I can remember vividly the day that I realized that, and I called Eric on this, and the day I realized I needed some help was when Junior Seau committed suicide. And I literally, Eric knows, we used to go to Junior's golf tournament and stuff in San Diego. I literally saw Junior like 3 weeks before he passed. And I'm sitting here and I'm reading the stuff that what his mom and his kids were saying about him, and it was me. It was like I'm reading this stuff and I'm going, that's what I'm suffering with right now. And it's scary. I mean, it's scary. I didn't know what to do. I just called Eric. I was like, man, I got to do something. You know what I'm saying? And at this point, when people come to you with that, how do you, I guess, for our community, like you said, how do you relax them, so to speak, to say that it's okay?
So part of that is what we call normalizing. When I can normalize somebody's experience, it helps them to understand that they're human. And I think for me, what pushed me after football was over for me, I attempted suicide twice. So what led me was I was at rock bottom, and I'm just like, I don't know who I am without a helmet. I come from a family of pro athletes. You know, we was talking about that earlier.
So look, I had to gather my thoughts of that. You attempted. So what was it? I mean, what was that feeling? Because I remember sitting in the closet the day I thought about it, and I know I was feeling empty. I felt even though I had money, it didn't matter. I was in a big mansion, it didn't matter. I just felt empty. I felt like I had no purpose. It was like I woke up just a shell of what I used to be and with nowhere to go. So what was it with you?
It was exactly what you just said. I woke up and because after ball, I started training my boys who were still playing, and that was some fulfillment. But then it was just still trying to identify, because when the locker room has become your community, because it's a sense of belonging for us as men, you know, and then outside of that, where do we fit? It's almost like a soldier coming back home and trying to be a civilian. Where do you fit in? Because most people don't understand locker room talk. Right. It's very raw.
It is.
It's upfront. You know, there's no filters.
But there's also a sense of family also and belonging when you're in that locker room.
In a sense of freedom.
Exactly.
You're not going to be judged.
Exactly.
And people are not going to look at you and assume. Like I tell everybody, I say the first thing you need to do when you transition, and as we're going to transition to this break as well, the first thing you need to do when you transition, have a plan, have a game plan, and don't be afraid to start off at ground zero.
Yeah.
Because that's where it is. We'll be back after this. Y'all gonna like this, man. I'm telling you, I gotta stay tuned to this. This is Crockett's Corner. We're just hanging out on the corner, but we're talking about the transition of life. After we transition back, come back and join us.
We're back on Crockett's Corner. Ro Parrish in here, Ray Crockett, the whole crew. It's the locker room vibe. And we were talking about this in the break. Although I didn't play professionally, I was still in a professional environment working at Turner Sports. We have the likes of, your Charles Barkleys, you have Shaquille O'Neal, Isaiah Thomas, all these legendary Hall of Famers. And once we came in that locker room, which was the dressing room, but we still had lockers, there was a sense of belonging, a sense of family. You have the vulnerability, but you knew also you wouldn't be judged. So it was very comfortable to be in that setting. Even though I wasn't a player, I was still looked at as a player.
Well, with Eric Warfield, I just got to make sure they know my crew. Eric Warfield, cornerback, Kansas City Chiefs. Flozell, Big Dog Adams. And my man,
Jay Barnett,
Jay Barnett.
author. Yes.
Author. Just
Just
here,
here,
bro.
Former
And
athlete.
former athlete.
Yeah, cup of coffee with the Green Bay Packers, Arena
Hey,
League too.
But now he's a specialist as far as mental health therapist. So we had to have him in. And I want to hit on Flo and Eric on this. What was the biggest transition for you as you moved on from football to being, as they say, a normal person?
For me, I think it wasn't a problem at all. Because once today I found out that I was retiring, I kicked it. I mean, seriously.
You celebrated?
I celebrated. I went party for like 3 weeks straight. Did not stop. And it felt like once I retired, that bundle of bricks or lumber that I was carrying for all those years to just trim on the ground, I was like, what next? Let's kick it. I called my buddy up. I'm serious. We kicked it for 3 weeks nonstop. And I got back to Dallas. I'm like, damn. And then I was just happy about the whole situation. I don't have any regrets. Don't feel anything about it. It's been 11 years, nothing. I only have one thing. Just one thing only. That's what we're talking about, the locker room. The locker room, the combined room, on the
that within
inside,
itself,
everything
though,
like
that within itself, whether you realize it or not, though, that within itself is mental.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's that emptiness. That's that feeling. How do you fill that void? How do you fill that locker room void, as you just said?
It's hard to refill it. I mean, like you go hang out or something like that. It's never going to be the same again. You get a couple of guys you can hang out and get a sense of it in some way, but it's not ever going to be like it was in the locker room because there's so many different races and different people on the inside, cornerbacks, linemen, white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't even matter.
Melting pot of everything in there.
Everybody's
But you
doing
all on the same
thing. We're going
page,
for
though.
the same common goal. We're trying
Right.
to win.
When you retire, you kind of want to get away from that. You just want to, like we said, be normal, and you can't. And so that's what brought me here to Dallas, because like nobody knows me here. I played in Kansas City and I played in Nebraska. So, but in the Midwest, I can't be normal. I gotta try to be a certain person, live up to this statute.
Right.
The switch always has to be on
Exactly.
when you step outside.
Everybody expects you
Exactly.
to be Warfield.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's not what I want to be. I want to go somewhere and have fun, let my hair down. I ain't got no hair, but you know what I'm saying.
You let your hair down quite a bit.
I let it down. So I just want to go out and enjoy myself.
Maybe a bit
Exactly.
too much.
I think we all
Exactly.
I don't know why I still got hair. I should be bald with both of y'all. But anyway.
But I can do that in Texas, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I can hang around
we got
y'all.
the feeling, no, yeah.
And it took me a minute to find crews that I could just hang with.
Right.
And I don't have to be out, getting the table and trying to pop bottles or trying to wear designer stuff and to look a certain way.
You can
Right.
fly under the radar and still enjoy
Yes,
yourself.
Exactly.
How important is it for the mind, though, to do something? Me and Eric was talking about this. Like, even though I don't need a job, I mean, we were fortunate enough that we retired with millions in the bank, but just having a job or having something to do, that day-to-day thing, even if you're not doing it for money. Like I've told a lot of my friends, go coach for free. I did. That's what I did. Eric knows. I coached for free. And the only reason why I did it because I needed my mind to move. And how important is that? Talk about that. How important is that idle mind?
That's so important. So I did this study when I was in grad school. The average NFL athletes make a decision within point, I think, was it right at 4 seconds. And the average human being takes about anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute to make a decision. So what happens with us is that our brain got accustomed to
Firing.
Reacting.
and
Yes.
to reacting,
Right.
Because football is a reaction sport.
And that's why we make terrible mistakes sometimes.
And that's why in the off season it was bad for most athletes. So when we have structure, we do well in controlled chaos. When that's chaos, it's control, we make quick decisions, whether it's picking up a blitz, whether it's reading, okay, he's changing his stance, so it's getting ready to be a run. It's our brain was working. So what happened is you remove that. Now you have all this free time. Now your brain doesn't fire on the same cylinder, so your mind becomes so idle. And this is what happened with guys, and all of a sudden you're trying to touch this, you're trying to touch that. And most guys, if you weren't around business people, I never forget this white guy played for Cleveland. We were at this mental health event, and he said the problem, Jay, is as a white guy, he said this. He said, when white guys go into the league, we come in as businessmen playing football. Right. Black men come in, black guys, he said, you guys come in as football players trying to do business.
Right.
So that understanding that we can't even comprehend trying to be a pro athlete, do life, and prepare for the after, whenever that could be.
And the big thing comes, this is what I found out with most athletes, and especially guys like myself who do business. And I don't get me wrong, I was a victim of it as well. When I first retired, I actually thought that Ray Crockett transferred to the business world. But Ray Crockett didn't transfer to the business world. When you leave the football field, all pro, 2-time Super Bowl champion, all that, whatever, when you go to the business world, if you don't humble yourself, if you go in there thinking you all pro, you're gonna get took. Because they play upon that, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of us don't know how to start over at ground zero, and it's frightening. It's a scary, because you leave there 30, I played a decade and a half, I'm 36. When I retire, I go somewhere, somebody 22 know more than me in business. And that's a humbling, that's a humbling experience. And that's why a lot of people don't do anything, because they don't want to go back to ground zero.
Yeah.
How difficult is that?
Yeah, it's hard to go back, and especially into spaces that you're unfamiliar with, because we know X's and O's. And I think what I've encouraged a lot of guys to do, man, because just think about this, I want to give this. So just like I work with a lot of athletes trying to help them transition back into the household as a husband and a father in the off season. It's so difficult. And so I'm working with this wife and this husband and wife, and I was trying to get her to understand that his program is based on the 6 months from the season.
Right.
So you have to allow that time and that process for him to gain new information, because the kids are different from 6 months
when
ago
he
when
left
the
them
season
before,
started.
in the season. Exactly.
So even taking in that new information and having an understanding that, okay, he has to learn all over again. And I think for most guys, it's that humility of like, man, do I really want to open myself up to being vulnerable enough to be a student again? Because this I know, but to go into an arena that I don't know about is very humbling, and that fear that we all wrestle with, because it's a new beginning.
So how hard has it
earlier.
been for you?
So
That's
he made
what
a
I
point
would
earlier,
ask.
and it was like, and I don't want to bring race into it, but it's like
But do
the
bring
white
race
guy
into it if you need
goes
to.
into it as a business, and so for us, it's like, I think that majority of the pro athletes come from the inner city. You know, we don't come from, silver spoons or mansions or
Private
parents that are well
schools
off.
and
Hell,
trust
even-
funds and things of that
yes,
nature. Yeah.
or even 2-parent household.
Right.
And some of us don't have the right guidance. But when we get to that position, we put so much on our shoulders because we get all those phone calls, cousins, nook them, and people that you don't know. Yeah. So you don't
leave
know.
Ray out of this.
And so in a sense, we feel sometimes obligated to help certain people. And once that career is done, you still got those people that are calling, and this money's got to make you live.
Right.
Like those NFL checks aren't coming in. You got consistent income coming, but you don't have those NFL checks coming. So you can't continue helping the same old people and doing the same old things that you did, And I was, looking at a couple of my text messages, and I got a ton of people that call and ask me for tickets almost every week. And I can't get no free tickets, so why you calling me?
Right. You've been out of the league.
Exactly. But it just continues to happen. And so it's like when you still try to get away from it to try to be normal, at some point you still got to accept who you are and that you made it. But you got to be happy about that too.
Right.
And so that comes that happiness of what I accomplished in life, but it's also that confusion of how can I just be normal?
Right. Well, how hard is it to find, like we talked about earlier, your purpose as far as a job, or because you want to do something? How difficult is that for you?
It's been hard for me. And the one time where I really, I coached for 2 years, like you said. I went back to Nebraska and got my degree. And while I was there, my ex-coach, Coach Osborne, asked me, like, man, if you're going to be on campus, you might as well just help these little kids out. So I coached 2 years with Bo Pelini, and it gave me something to do every single day, and it kept my mind busy and occupied. I got to work with these little kids to try to help them achieve their dreams. So that was a proud moment for me. It was almost more. It was almost better than what I did for the NFL. Just
More
didn't come with a check.
Yeah.
And so, but it'll wear you out because those hours just, you going in at 5 and you leaving at 1 o'clock some nights. Like that ain't normal.
Welcome back to Crockett's Corner. Had to pay the bills. Now we're giving it to you straight with no chaser.
And so it still wasn't normal, but it gave me a purpose.
Right.
And then it's like, for me, I can only speak for myself. I'm from Mississippi. Mississippi, the most impoverished place you could ever.
Where about?
Vicksburg.
I'm from the Delta.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You know.
Jackson.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mississippi is like stepping into a time. When you go back to Mississippi, man, bro, let me tell you, when you go back to Mississippi, it is like it's like stepping into a time machine.
Yes.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Still, it's still back in time. And so, but I love going back home to visit, but I don't want to be there for more than 2 or 3 days.
That's it.
Right.
Love my people.
And Flo, I want to bring something to you because you talked about after you retired, turn up, kicking for 3 weeks straight. But post-retirement, was there a moment to where you got low and your mental state changed? I know we spoke about the locker room. What was your lowest moment post-retirement?
If I had one, I don't remember very well because I'm always prepared. So even when I first got in the league, I'm like, okay, literally I'm in this locker room my first year, like how long am I going to be here? After that first year, they're like, oh, statistics are 3 to 4 years back in 1998. So I thought I was going to be in the league about 5 years. So I kept the same car. I got an apartment. I bought a house so I could put my money into something not blowed in. The guys aren't messing with me for driving a 5-year-old Impala. You know, why are you driving this old 5-year Impala? Get you another. I'm like, no, the air conditioning work and the radio work. I don't need the car.
That's all you need in Texas.
I love it.
So my family was in the real estate. When I was growing up, I came from Chicago. So I started doing a lot of stuff with that. So I just started buying little stuff here and there on my second, third year. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna establish my business right now. So I know what I'm gonna do when I'm done in 5 years. So I can already have this stuff set instead of being around like, oh, you don't play anymore, so we can't help you. So I established all that stuff first before I had retired, let alone I didn't know I was gonna last 13 years.
Right.
So
Now,
once
granted,
I got
not
it,
to cut you off, Flo was in a different position though. Flo was the first round pick. Was your top?
second round, man.
He's a second round
Are you
pick.
still what is couple million? Signing
No,
bonus?
it was 635,000.
To support Eric's point about not coming from guidance, the guidance you had is your family was in real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
you
I
had a
stayed on
background.
with it.
Yeah, so
he
you
had
had a
he had a
background.
background, but he also had a plan ready to go post-retirement. So he might have not, he clearly didn't suffer from some things that other athletes have suffered from, not having that sense of belonging or not having a plan.
but
or
I
where's
can
my
So
tell
I
money?
you
just kept
this,
going
Ian.
on and on and on and stop it. What's the difference between a 35-year-old man, a 40-year-old man, and a 4-year-old child? When you have a children, you have to keep their mind occupied to be able to keep them going.
Exactly.
35, 40, 45, 50, you got to keep your mind occupied to keep yourself going. So I knew I never wanted to start a foundation while I was playing because I knew I wasn't going to do 100%. So once I retired, I started a foundation. So that keeps me going along with the business and everything. So I just keep going on and on. I don't need time to be thinking about any depression and all that other stuff, feeling sorry for myself. Not to put anybody down that's going through that.
And,
I would
and
love
see,
to talk to some guys.
That's
I would love
that's
to
the
talk to
fear
some guys
factor.
and
Yeah,
help them too.
that's the fear factor.
So I just kept myself busy, so I never even really got to that point.
And see exactly what you said is exactly how I used to think before it happened to me. Like that, those exact words is what I used to say. I used to say, depressed. What you depressed about? You ain't got nothing to be depressed about. Anxiety. What's anxiety? Look, I worry about what's happening today.
Right.
Until it hits you. You know what I'm saying? Until it hits you. And when it hits you, then that's when I'm sitting in that room like, what the hell is this? Yeah. Like I'm literally culture shock, sitting in the closet going, why do I feel this way? Like, and I know you don't want to say it. Like I didn't want to say the D word. I was like, am I depressed? Like, is this a depressed? So that fear factor is something that we all, just like you just said, we all face that challenge of having to admit to yourself first that you need help.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time that we actually get to feel. And I was telling this white clinician this
On your own. Get the feel on your own.
Because the thing about it, man, if you think about this, when you hear a coach say, do you have heart? It's not based on function, it's based on desire.
Exactly.
Do you have heart, son, to make this play?
Yeah.
He's not talking about do you have heart based on how you feel in your function, but do you have the desire to get it done? So our programming is always based on performance. So when you sitting by yourself, and I remember when Junior, when that happened, I was working out with my buddy who played center, Kendall Jaycox. And I said, bro, when that happened, but when Junior had the accident and he rolled off the cliff, when that happened, he said, yeah, bro, I knew then. I said, bro, that wasn't an accident.
Yeah,
that was
trying.
intentional.
He was trying, yeah.
It was intentional. And you can tell when guys, statistics show, when a guy shoots himself, he's at his wit's end. And if you notice, every guy that's taken his life post-lead from the studies, and when they've shot themselves, I was hearing voices. It was, you know, and then Junior was in a place where people were still, give me Junior, that was playing. And when you are in this performance mode, and all of a sudden you're out and people are still asking, and for the first time, you have to sit with yourself, because we don't sit with ourselves. Because it's in season, off season, in season, off season. And the first time that I had feelings like, damn, what's happening right now? And if you can't put language to it, and that's usually the issue for us as black men, we can't put language to what we feel, because we grew up in a household, hey nigga, you better not cry.
Right.
You better man up.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
You better man up.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you're sitting alone and all of a sudden you, as I say, one of the worst places you can be left is left alone with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Preach.
And because you got to think about it, the most dangerous thing, in my opinion, for all of us is fame. Because once your endorphins get fame, you looking for that.
There's no drug.
There's
like
no
fame.
drug that can replace
It's a
it. That's
high-
why
it's a high
most
you never get.
athletes drink, do drugs, women, because a woman, that's fame. That's somebody appreciating who you are. And that's what we look for when we retire, is where do I get that appreciation at now? Because I know I had the problem. When I went and I was broadcasting well, and I came home to my wife and my kids, and I was a great coach. I was a great dad. I was a great husband, but wasn't no fame in that. Wasn't no fame. Wasn't nobody. Coach Crockett wasn't the same as Ray Crockett. It just, so you look for that. It's like, where do you find that outlet? You know what I'm saying? And how do you find that outlet?
Man, I remember sitting with my therapist, and my second suicide attempt was a drug overdose. And I remember the therapist said, I'm gonna tell you right now, what football gave you, you'll never get it again. And he said, until you find resolve in that, you'll always be searching. And that's what made me stop, you know. And then I realized, I said, all right, God, you must have a purpose, because everybody else I know that attempted it succeeded. And I think is what he said is you have to find community and redefine what that looks like for you. Because it's not gonna be the same ever again in a locker room, right? Like, you're never gonna have that freedom just to be like, man, boy, these niggas wild. Just to be.
And you missed that though.
And you missed that.
Yeah,
and that's what
that.
and that's what we look for as men. We're looking for places to just be, where there's no judgment. That if I tell you I'm having a bad day, you don't question my Superman.
Right.
And you accept Clark Kent, because you know that's part of the duality of knowing that I can leap tall buildings with a single bound, but I can also embrace. And when we don't get that embrace, like the game was his coach said, hey, hell of a job, or even just your homeboys, you made a big play.
And the biggest thing too is the communication part of it. Because that's the one thing, as you said earlier, you have a fear of communicating now. It's like to your spouse. I know I had problems communicating to my wife, because I didn't know what I was feeling like. Like you just said, I'm reading this Black Men Have Feelings. I remember one day coming home and I wanted to say I need a hug, but I don't really know how to say I need a hug. You know, it's like you don't know how to communicate well, because we've never gotten to really communicate freely. There was always a plan for us, and you always had this time to do this time to do, so you never really had just the freedom to openly communicate.
Man. Ooh, you hitting on something right now, Ray.
I'm just only.
But it was your rock bottom that got you there, though.
Yeah.
And so it was the same with me. And I mean, I can go on a whole segment of what my personal life, when it hit rock bottom for me. Like,
And we
I
need
knew,
you to.
I know, but see, I knew like money couldn't help me with those situations.
Right.
And so the best thing for me to do was to go and sit with this therapist and just put it all on the table.
You know what, I'm gonna hold you there because I know what you've been through, and I really want you to talk about it. When we come back on this break, we're getting serious right now. Look, we giving it to y'all straight with no chaser. This is the Locker Room Talk. This is the Locker Room Edition. Crockett's Corner. We'll be right back.
You are now rocking with the best. Welcome back to Crockett's Corner, Roe Parrish, and we are in the locker room, Jack. Let's go. One thing that I want to do here, of course, we have the beverages because this is the locker room setting, no judgment. Let's go ahead and toast to everybody in the locker room one time because you got to have these types of moments and beverages in order to relax for a moment and be comfortable and be vulnerable.
Yeah, and this is also my way, Eric, of getting you to talk about rock bottom. Go ahead, take a drink. Sir.
I was talking. I mean,
loosen up. Loosen up.
Can I refill? Can I
Listen up.
refill?
Is this the moment where you start crying?
Can I refill?
Listen up.
So they can see what I'm drinking.
You know,
Okay,
you
here we
get a
go.
couple of drinks. Somebody gonna say, "Okay, I'll tell you."
They said,
yeah. Look, give us one of them drunk
She
man
took my house and my car. She did me wrong.
But no, on a serious note, talk about your journey because I know a little bit about it. Just tell how bad did it get, and at what point did you decide, okay, I got to do something different. This is not Eric.
Okay,
Warfield.
so the thing that got me, it started this way. So I moved in with a girl I was dating for like 13 years, and within a year and a half of being here, it was all kind of rocky. You know, we figured it was probably best to go our separate ways. But you know, when you love somebody, you don't know how to break it off.
Right.
You know, you're not right for each other, but you still have that.
But you're comfortable.
Yes. And so, right at that time. One of my buddies I was with every single week playing golf with, Terry Glenn. The same week that Terry passed away in the car wreck, my dad passed away. Same exact week. On top of that, baby mama cut me off and talked to my daughter. Relationship, old girl just left. Didn't say anything. Yes. I would have been all right if we'd had the discussion, but it was just like a boom. And then I had my little deals outside of football that I had going on. Everything was just going bad for me. And I had no way of fixing anything. So for about a month, I wasn't sleeping good. I wasn't eating. I had dropped like 20 pounds. I just, you know, when you black and you see somebody look a little thin, you always think they got something.
Yeah. Boy, you on that
shit.
Yeah, get out that pipe, boy. Trust me, I've been there.
Exactly. So, and I had no way of figuring out anything. And I met with some guy, and I got a call from Byron, and Byron was the NFLPA president here. Right. And so Byron was like, man, I haven't seen him, haven't talked to you. He's like, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going through some stuff. He's like, well, we got some NFL counselors here in town that can help you out. And so they sent me to one guy, and it was just like one of the worst sessions ever.
That's how my first session went.
And so I'm like, man, I'm not getting anything from this. It's not helping me. I'm going through the same things every day. I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping. You know, I'm antisocial. I don't know what's really going on with me because like I try to figure out and you know, on my own. Right. And I can't do it. So
So did you self-medicate? Let's be real. Did you self-medicate?
Oh, I was drinking.
Did you self-medicate?
Yeah, bad.
Yeah.
And so I finally went to a therapist, and I don't know, I forget how I found him, but I went to one of his first meeting, and dude was like, man, you're holding back. Like there's something wrong with you, like internally. And I said, man, just to be honest, I just gave him everything out on the table. And hell, I just started crying in front of him. It was like, man, I'm trying to hide and wipe my eyes and like, I'm all right. Like, and he's like, no, you're not. You know, this is what you need. Like, just let it all out. So right. I just cried and told him my story. So, but the worst was I didn't feel like I had really accomplished anything. So I went home the next week and my grandmother was at my mom's house. And I sat and I called both of them into a bedroom and I told my grandmother and my mom, was like, I was at my weakest, and I said I felt like I didn't deserve to be on this earth. And man, my grandmother just cried, and that hurt me too bad. So, so that's what really made me like take the sessions that I was having with this new guy, and I was doing it twice a week, and I was supposed to meet with him once. And so I was like, dude, I just need to get all this out. And so from then on, like my family and friends, I had to share with them so that they can help me recognize when I'm in my moment of weakness.
Right.
And so like if you feel like I'm going astray, or if you feel like I'm isolating from you guys, call me out on it. You know, don't be afraid to say certain things of what you see.
Accountability partners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's been the best thing that's helped me so far. Like all these guys that I play golf with, they know, you know, if Eric's doing certain things, something's wrong. I don't drink, so don't offer me a drink. Don't, you know, put me in certain situations. It's like, exactly. The accountability part. Help me continue this road, because like this was a couple of years ago. I still got it, you know, I'm still making this uphill climb, and it's not easy.
Oh, it's a day-to-day battle.
Oh, yeah.
It's a day-to-day battle. And the one thing I heard, did you hear what he just said, though? Did you guys hear? That's how we were trained growing up as a professional or just as a football player, just that old school, never let them see you sweat, never let them see you cry, never see you never hurt, or you injured, all that stuff gets you to the point to you in therapy and still ashamed to cry.
And see, and Ray, and
still ashamed to cry.
To double back on that, one thing I want to bring to you, Jay, being a player, what made you want to go into your chosen field? Was there something specific that happened to you that put you in this career path, or did you already have that plan while you were playing?
Oh, no, this wasn't planned. I think for me, after I started sharing my story about, you know, surviving suicide, dudes started calling me. I mean, cats was like hitting me up like, yo, bro, I'm having the same thing. Bro, I'm having these thoughts, man, I'm struggling, you know. And then there was like this, it was like a season of guys was just struggling with the suicide ideation, which is the thoughts of contemplating, like not feeling like that like there's no reason for me to be here on earth. And I felt like it was a God thing for me, because I believe athletes are some of the most underserved, you know, individuals.
Right.
Because everybody looks at us with our armor on. Oh, you can take it.
All the time.
You can take it.
Yes.
And then when you have a moment.
Still do.
Exactly. And when you have a moment, it's just like, how could you be going through that? You know, you got this and you got that. And I'm just saying, going back to what he said, I knew for myself, no money, no woman, nobody was gonna fix it.
Right.
Because I called my father and mother, and I was like, yo, I'm getting ready to, you know, end this right now. I'm letting y'all know this is, because I just wanted to deal with it. Because football was how I hid my pain from my father. And when football was over, it was how I coped. I didn't have anything to cope with. I wasn't a drinker, I wasn't a smoker. Right. So it was how I coped. And for most of us, is when our coping mechanisms begins to fail us, we begin reaching. And so I wanted to serve as guys, man, athletes, and particularly black men, because most of the guys come from inner city and broken families. And then when you make it, they're thinking like the money didn't fix the daddy issues, the abuse, the neglect. And I started hearing all of these stories from guys that you would look at, you like, man, this dude busting heads on Sunday. Right. But he's like, bro, I was molested, man, at 10. And now I'm dealing with, you know what I'm saying? I can't end my week without smashing 2 or 3 chicks.
But you know, here's the big thing. The funny thing is this, what I learned, especially in my therapy and with my therapist, is the biggest problem that we have, and we don't even recognize it, is from a young age, we've been trained to be performance-based. Everything is based off performance. So when you retire, you no longer have that. Like, I remember my first business deal. I made $1 million. My first business deal, made $1 million. But it didn't feel like I made $1 million. You know why? Didn't feel like I did nothing. I didn't perform. I was like, okay, but what, you know what I'm saying? Right. But when you stop a wide receiver, when you stop a lineman, you get cheered, you get those claps, you get those cheers. That's why the womanizing stuff coming, because you're performing. Yep. It's a performance base. Our minds are so mentally, you know, strapped on, we have to perform. Welcome back to Crockett's Corner. Had to pay the bills, now we're giving it to you straight with no chaser. And that's why it's so hard for what you mentioned, so hard to find purpose in a job afterwards. How many jobs do you get to perform in? Like, how many jobs do you really get to perform?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that we've got all that adulation, that admiration growing up, and everybody always clapping for us, We looking for that. So where do you find that? So what I have to ask you is, you heard Eric's story. I mean, my story is very similar as far as hitting rock bottom. It was a therapist who actually encouraged me to write this book, to be honest.
Probably therapeutic for you.
It was very therapeutic for me to write the book. And not only that, the reason why the title is Bump and Run, it saved me, was because of what I did. Eric knows I was known as a bump and run guy. That's getting up close and personal. The therapist told me point blank, what would you do if a receiver was getting the best of you? I say bump and run. She said, well, right now, life is kicking your ass.
I like that.
So it was for me to, I had to start bumping and running. I had to start attacking life instead. And most of us, like Eric, we sit back and let life attack us. Right. When we are used to being on the attack, when we retire, we let life attack us. So what are some things we can do, or what are some things you would suggest a player do? Because I want to help somebody as well. And Flo, you exempt. You made it out of this, I guess, somehow, some way. Look, somehow, some way. You ain't got no problem. Look, let Flo tell it.
Check this out, Chet.
You ain't got no problem.
Before we go to him, I like to reiterate on something like that.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, you talk about inner city and all that stuff. I was fortunate not to be, raised in the inner city. I had both parents in the house and all that stuff. We were cool. But one thing that I had trouble with growing up, like you said, we bred to be showboaters, not showboaters, but performers. We bred to be athletes. We had an image to uphold. And my problem was communication. And I didn't go to a therapist to figure it out. It was actually my sister. And once I retired, it was probably like 5 years ago, and something happened. I'm like, I'm sorry. And she said, huh? I said, I'm sorry. She was like, you really mean that?
She never heard you say those words.
She like, you never said sorry before. I said, yes, I have. She like, no, you haven't.
Wow.
I forgot what it was for, and then I thought, I was like, man, that's really tough. So I talked to my aunt, which is like my mother, and started talking to her. She's like, you're not very communicative. You don't open up. You don't do anything like that. So over the years, I kind of self-taught myself just over the last 5 or 6 years to being more open and be more vulnerable and expressing my feelings, or just saying things I need to say that I haven't before, right. Because we used to hold ourselves to a certain standard, and we got to keep ourselves that way, because nobody give us a handbook on telling us how to communicate.
Exactly.
That's how we're bred. So whatever you taught, that's what you do.
And the key word that you use in there was vulnerable.
Yeah.
As an athlete, that's the worst thing you can be.
Yeah,
is vulnerable.
Feel a little trigger right
you know what I mean? As soon as you said vulnerable, I was like, wait, hold up, dog. That's the worst thing you can be. But in life, that's what you need to be.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I want to, I guess, if I may, if you guys don't, give us something that guys like ourselves, and not just ourselves, not just athletes. Like I said, the transition is hard for anybody. I don't care where you transition from. What are some things that you can do before rock bottom? It took Eric and myself pretty much to hit rock bottom.
I think one of the things I want to highlight, and what both of you guys have expressed, and even what you've expressed, Ray, is understanding that vulnerability is really a display of your actual strength. We always think it's in our physical nature, and we think it's weakness, but it's actually a display of your strength. Being able to acknowledge and identify that I'm hurting, that I feel something. And one of the things that I would always suggest to brothers is, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to acknowledge that this hurt right now, whether it's divorce, whether it's a career-ending injury, whether it's you thought something was gonna go one way and it didn't. It's okay to acknowledge that it hurts you. And I think when guys do that in therapy, man, there's a breakthrough, because you've watched this wall come down, and you watch this man says, let me let it go. Because behind all of us, there's this little boy that we're trying to save. Because many times the little boy was trained to
be a
eventually
man.
to be a man.
Yes.
But you became a
Yes.
man,
Yes.
not realizing that the little boy is still wounded.
Yes.
He's still broken in some
Yes.
place, and that's okay. And if brothers can get to a place of acknowledgement, the second thing is sitting with it. And what I mean by sitting with it is going through the process of feeling it. So many times we don't want to feel pain, especially even if a coach asks you, are you injured or you hurt? You sitting there like, dang, because if I'm injured, I know it's over.
Yeah.
If I'm hurt,
You lie.
yeah,
You're not gonna admit it. And that's what he said. You're not gonna be vulnerable and tell the truth. You're gonna lie. You're gonna put up that arm. And the one thing I will touch on what you just said about the little boy and the man, and Eric, you and I talked about this. A lot of us athletes, because we grew up the way Eric said, whether you're playing basketball, football, whatever, like me, I'm the youngest boy, but when I turned 20 and went to the league, I became the oldest man because now I'm taking care of everybody. So where everybody else in life gets to find out how to be a man at 21, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 30, I had to be a man because I was taking care of my nieces, my nephews, my mama, my daddy, and my brother. So we missed that whole 20 to 30. That 20 to 30, yeah, that 20 to 30, we have to learn how to manage money, so all that fun and stuff, that's why I feel a lot of us feel lost with no purpose because we don't get that 20 to 30 training.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't get that training, and then we don't get the space that's created for us. Even like he said, I mean, like my therapy sessions, like the first 3 sessions, I didn't talk. But as soon as he asked me about football, tears just started rolling because it's like now he was able to make that connection. And even, for the brothers that are watching, man, it's okay to cry, man.
Hey, I tell people all the time, look, one thing I learned from my pastor told me this when I went in and I told him, I went through my divorce. Same thing, similar happening. I went through my divorce. My dad died, who was my best friend during the time I was going through my divorce. My son quit football, who I thought was going to be so all those things happened and I never cried. And my pastor, he was like, crying is fertilization.
Yes, it is.
For the soil. He's like, once you cry, that's when you'll start to rebuild, reheal, because you're fertilizing yourself.
That's it.
And I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way. He's like, when they throw dirt on your name and you cry, you actually fertilize yourself to come back as a new plant. And I think that's a good way to end this segment. First and foremost, I want you to reiterate in that camera right there. Let guys know that it's okay to be vulnerable because it's a sign of what? Strength and not weakness?
And not weakness.
Yeah, please let them know.
Yeah. So to the guys that are watching, man, I want to say this, man. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to acknowledge that you have feelings and that you're not Superman. As much as we all love to put on the cape and we all love the validation that the S on our chest brings us. But the one thing that is true is that you are a human being. You have feelings, you have emotion. You are not a machine. I don't care how strong, how fast you are. You have feelings. And brother, I want to encourage you, it's okay to acknowledge when something happens that shakes you. And that way you can begin to process your emotions from a healthy place. And that way you're not processing from a place of coping. And as you begin to release those tears, it's going to allow you to begin to cleanse your soul, even begin to cleanse your memory, because so many times we go to the grave with so much and we're weighted down by things that we could have released. And so I want to encourage you, brothers, you have feelings, you are loved, you are appreciated, and more importantly, man, you're on a journey. And as I always like to say, man, healing is a journey and wholeness is the destination.
And I'm going to end it like this. Whatever you do, find something to do. Do not isolate yourself. Find your locker room. That's what's been missing. Find your locker room. And after you find your locker room, just heal, bro. Just heal. It's okay to heal. Toast, Crockett's Corner. This was needed. I needed it. Appreciate you guys for coming out. And we'll see you guys next week. Ray and Ro, you are now rocking with the best. It's Crockett's Corner.
The one that I